Hi everyone, Mark here with some indie game recommendations for the month of May 2017. So the first game this month is Little Nightmares, which is obviously very heavily indebted to Limbo and Inside. You play as a kid who dies a lot, it's really dark and dreary, and it has no voice or text. The main differences though are that it's on a giant ship, which means the camera sways back and forth all the time in a way that made me ever so slightly queasy, and it's more of a horror game. So that means there are sections with horrible, unstoppable boss monsters who chase you around, just like the Nemesis and the Baker family from the Resident Evil games. This means there's lots of hiding under dresser tables, waiting for the perfect moment, then popping out, snatching a key and running for dear life. A few things stop it from being too scary though. One is the third-person perspective and a generous zoomed-out camera, which means no one's really going to sneak up on you. And the other is that all the kills are insta-deaths, and then you respawn, do it again, and it loses its luster on the second go-around. But that's okay, because this is more than just a horror game. It's also got plenty of clever physics puzzles, and it tells an evocative story through its art style and what's going on in the background of various scenes. The thing it reminded me of was Spirited Away by Studio Ghibli, but kind of done in a sort of Tim Burton style, you know? It's just kind of weird and off-putting. I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I finished it in a couple sittings and just had a blast with it. It's out on PC, PS4 and Xbox One. Okay, so let me be upfront on this one. Rime is not a game I can recommend wholeheartedly, especially at that price. Yikes. I mean, I really wanted to like this game because it takes inspiration from things I love, like Eco, Journey, The Wind Waker, and there's even a bit of old school Tomb Raider in there too. And this manifests in things like some clever puzzles, the opportunity to do some exploration, some really memorable moments, a gorgeous art style, and another wordless story. But I felt like the whole thing was just a bit hollow, you know? The puzzles are all kind of wispy and straightforward, the exploration quickly gives away to much more linear progression, and the world, while quite startlingly beautiful, is ultimately a bit bland. Most of all, it feels more like a tribute band than its own thing. This has clearly been made by people who love, like, Fumito Ueda's games, but then just went, let's make one of them, and that will rarely generate something super creative and new. But it does have some of its own ideas in there, and some lovely puzzles and things like that. So while I don't love Rime, I did enjoy what I've played so far, and I probably will finish it. It's probably not very long. It's one of those games you just want to play when you have a spare weekend where you want to chill out and play something kind of easygoing, light and charming, and this one should fit the bill. It's out on PC, PS4 and Xbox One, and a Switch version is coming later this year, but you might want to wait for a price drop. Here's a fun one, Dead Cells. This is an early access game that mashes up Castlevania, a procedurally generated roguelike. They're calling the whole thing a Roguevania, which is, I'm not sure about that. Like, shouldn't it be a Metroid? I don't know. The Castlevania is a Metroid ripoff. Anyway, and it's also got a peppering of Dark Souls influence in there, which you can mostly feel in the whole Souls-like currency and the way you drop that stuff when you die and then have to go back and get it, and also in the combat, which is full of dodge rolls and whatnot, plus the regain system from Bloodborne. This game has got loads of interesting and inventive weapons that are all just littered about. You know, you've got ice grenades, a whip with a critical attack if you hit enemies with the very tip, and a shield that can bounce back projectiles. It's just a lot of fun to find stuff and then experiment with different fighting styles. But most of all, this game just feels good to play. Combat is punchy and frantic, movement is slick and effortless, and your character is just as nimble as hell. You can get this game on Steam now in early access, and it looks like they're just going to be adding more and more stuff before the full launch. And finally, how do you pronounce this? Nog? I don't know. Anyway, so one of the surprising things about VR is that photorealistic games are not always so great, but weird and abstract stuff like Rez, Super Hypercube and Thumper work great. It can be like sticking your head in a TV from the 80s, it's rad. you might want to add Nog to that list, which is this friendly Wii puzzle game about opening up these crazy boxes that are kind of like big robot heads or big stone statue heads, but then you can open them up and there are dials and wheels and people and frogs inside them. It's kind of trippy and odd and funny and just and fun. I mean, this is a game that I just wouldn't really recommend outside of virtual reality. The puzzles are either very simple or just kind of obtuse and hard to really pin down their logic, which isn't very fun. This is not a tremendous escape the room style game, any way you slice it. But inside VR, this is a game about poking and prodding a weird box of wonder. It's all vivid colours and tiny dioramas. It's fascinating, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it on PS4 in PSVR. The game's also coming to PC and iOS. Okay, that's your lot. Hopefully there's something of interest in there. I actually played a lot of games this month, but ended up playing lots of stuff that I just didn't enjoy at all and couldn't recommend in any fashion, like Tumbleseed, which was just more annoying than fun, Super Rude Bear Resurrection, which was kind of cool in a Meat Boy fashion, but I didn't quite gel with it, and Strafe, which is a sort of Doom / Quake inspired first person shooter, but just felt really punishing, and I didn't really have the time to really get into it. And also Rain World, which is a game that I find absolutely fascinating and very interesting, but again, just felt like I couldn't even understand what the hell was going on in that game. Even after reading a few wikis, I'm still just lost. It's something I'd maybe like to get into just because the very positive reviews suggest that it's a game that if you put the time in and you commit to it, you'll have a really good and sort of fascinating experience. But for me, I'm just like, you gotta give me something to go on here, Rain World, because I'm just stumbling around in the dark, just dying over and over again. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. How do I end this video? By pressing this big stop button.